Okay, so when it comes to Spider-Man films, car scenes actually play a big part in developing and defining what Peter Parker stands for. Whether it's lashing out to Uncle Ben in their last real conversation before his death, seeing his ghost as he quits being Spider-Man, or coming home with Tony from his first real mission, Peter speaking to an elderly mentor figure in a car is something that has appeared at several points throughout multiple Marvel movies. I think this is often used as a framing device because we're so used to seeing Peter swinging through the air with ease as he glides across the city. Bringing him into a confined space with little to no room somewhat encloses the character and means that he has to face things head on. Being unable to run away or escape means that it's in these moments that we see what Peter is truly going through, and nowhere is this shown more than in the one during Homecoming. For the last week now, I've been racking my brain to think about what my favourite Spider-Man scene is, and I think that this comes out on top for a number of reasons. It actually shows the difference between Peter and his villains, and it works on a lot of levels. Now, we will be going through it all, and if you agree that this scene is amazing, then I'd massively appreciate the thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe as we do videos like this each and every week in which we break down why a movie scene is perfect. If this is your first time here, I'm your host Paul, aka your friendly neighbourhood spoiler man. Now let's get into Spider-Man Homecoming. Okay, so the movie as a whole actually has a lot of metaphors for the working class struggle. We open with Adrian Toomes scavenging for parts in the wake of the Battle of New York. One of the things I've always appreciated is that Toomes is a scavenger, and he ends up taking on this mantle in animal form when he becomes the Vulture. This opening should be his ticket out of poverty, but instead the fortune he would be facing is overtaken by damage control headed up by Tony Stark. To Toomes, Stark caused the destruction, and now he's profiting from it, further shafting the little guy and adding to his billions, whilst Adrian has to live on the breadline. There's an amazing shot where we see Stark Tower looming over Central Station, and we pass from that to Toomes and his crew to see them digging in the dirt. On a symbolic level, it shows how Stark and people like him tower above everything else, whilst the rest of us have to put our hands in the mud to pick up their scraps. The introduction subtly tells us why Adrian is doing all this when he shows us a drawing that his daughter Liz made, and though we don't know the pair are related at this point, it's easy to see why he turns to a life of crime. Peter later asks how he could do this to Liz, and Toomes says that he's not doing it to her, he's doing it for her. Just before we cut to the title sequence, Toomes arrives at his headquarters and says business is good. This is a very important line, and this intro basically has its own self-contained arc in which we see a supervillain origin for a working class man who was beaten by the elite, turning the situation on its side so that he can win too. It's important to bear in mind not only for the car scene, but also Peter's character too. Peter, much like Toomes, was only given things to do when the elite needed him. The airport scene in Civil War would have gone a lot worse had he not been there, but as soon as that was over and Stark no longer wanted his help, he was cast out to do things on his own. The majority of the first hour of Homecoming very much is Peter attempting to reach out to him and Happy, but because they don't need him for anything, he's ghosted and told to stop bothering them. Like Toomes, he's put in a position where he has to do things on his own, because sticking to what they say will simply have him stuck at being the bottom rung of the ladder. Now Peter is idealistic and he desperately wants to be an Avenger. Therefore he attempts to stop Toomes whenever he can, and a big gut punch in the film comes when we realise that he's actually the father of Liz, aka Peter's love interest. There's a couple of clues towards this in the movie, and for me it's up there with the Hydra twist in terms of how unpredictable it was. It leads to one of the most tense scenes in the film, in which Toomes figures out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
You got to hang out with Spider-Man.
Really? Spider-Man? Wow. What's he like?
Nice man.
I've seen you around, right? I mean, somewhere. Have we ever, because of even the voice?
He does academic decathlon with me.
Oh.
And he's at my party.
Ah.
He disappeared.
No, I did not disappear.
Yes, you did. You disappeared like you always do, like you did in DC too.
That's terrible what happened down there in DC, though. Were you scared? I bet you were glad when your old pal Spider-Man showed up in the elevator, though.
Yeah, well, I actually didn't go up. I saw it off on the ground.
Yeah.
Very lucky that he was there that day.
Good old Spider-Man.
Now this works for a number of reasons. Toomes clearly recognises Peter, but he doesn't know where from. He however begins to piece it all together when Peter's absences become more and more frequent. He's left realizing that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and John Watts does a brilliant turn with the lighting here that shows exactly when the penny drops. Toomes is sat waiting at the red light with it beaming across his face, and then this turns to green when Adrian realizes what's going on.
Good old Spider-Man.
From here, Liz is dropped off, and Toomes sits in the car with Peter and he gives him an ultimatum.
Nothing is more important than family. You saved my daughter's life, and I could never forget something like that, so I'm going to give you one chance. Are you ready? You walk through those doors, you forget any of this happened, and don't you ever interfere with my business again. Because if you do, I'll kill you and everybody you love. Hey, I just saved your life. Now what do you say?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now I'm going to be completely honest with you, yeah? There's been a couple of times where I've watched this and I've genuinely thought that if I was in that position, that I probably would have made a partnership with Toomes and we both could have got rich together. If I'd been a high schooler, yeah, probably would have just kept going out with Liz, made a little business with her dad, and sat chilling, ignoring the fact that my spoiler sense was tingling. I guess it's lucky that I got bitten by a radioactive attention seeker and decided to become a YouTuber, as I would have sucked in this role. However, Peter and Toomes are very much parallels of one another, and this is why the latter gives the former a choice. Toomes was in Peter's position once, and he sees him as a naive teenager who is simply trying to make their own way in the world, much like how he was. In fact, when Peter confronts Toomes later on, he very much lays it out that people like him are nothing to the elite. Peter says that Toomes selling weapons to people is wrong, and Adrian reiterates the point that that is exactly how Stark made his fortune. He says that people like them have to fight their wars and pick up their scraps, and because of this, they don't matter. He is very much warning Peter of what will happen if he doesn't get wise to the program, and it's a very chilling line. Juxtaposing this, Peter sees Toomes as his own future, and what will happen if he refuses to do the right thing. He's very much looking at the older man that he could become if he turns against what's true, and though Toomes is living the high life, it's truly doomed to all come crashing down if people like him stand up against it. Toomes threatens to kill him and his family if he interferes with his business again, and this clearly shakes Peter to the core. Most would walk away and go to the dance, and though it initially seems like this is what Peter is going to do, he still decides to take Toomes down, even though it could have massive repercussions due to his identity being out there. That's what true heroes do, and it's a defining moment for the character that almost kills him, but in the end he becomes stronger because of it. Now I know Tony often overshadows Peter in the MCU, but this moment is very much a learning experience for him too. He very much realizes that the people he's overlooked are important, and he ends up inviting Peter upstate because of the actions he takes here. However, who this is most important for is Peter, a person who up until this point has been cast to the side by the elite, but because of his moral fibre, he hasn't taken a darker path. Toomes did because he was weaker, and he ended up becoming the villain of the story, whereas Peter, who is given a similar choice, ends up becoming the hero. This is where the stakes are arguably the highest for the character, and even though a big threat now knows his identity, he still puts his own needs to the side in order to stop him. It truly is a defining moment for the character, and the way that the scene plays out is absolutely perfect because we know that Peter could have easily lost, and yet he still charged ahead. This is a Spider-Man without his tech or allies, taking someone down because it's the right thing to do. It really defines not only the character of the Vulture, but also Peter himself, and why with great power comes great responsibility. Peter could easily use his gifts for his own benefits, but instead he applies them in a way that will help the greater good, and because of this I think it's the perfect Spider-Man scene. It's one of my favourite moments not only in the MCU, but in Spider-Man films in general, and it's something that I constantly go back to as one of the best moments in, well, a comic book movie ever. Now obviously I'd love to hear your thoughts on the scene, so make sure you comment below and let me know. If you think there's a better one with Spider-Man that speaks more to you, then I'd love to hear it, and as a thank you for interacting with the video, you'll be put into a prize draw. We are giving away 3 MCU box sets on the 30th of August, and all you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the moment. We pick them at random at the end of the month, and the winners of the last one are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at Heavy Spoilers. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, which will be linked on screen right now. We pointed out all the Easter eggs we could find, and also discussed how they call back to the comics, so it's definitely worth checking out if you want to know more. With that out of the way, thank you for sitting through the video. I've been Paul, I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.